They were not soldiers. They did not carry swords, nor banners, nor royal seals. They carried scripture, secrets, and betrayal. Disguised as men of God, these holy emissaries crossed the borders of Wallachia, convinced that faith would protect them from a ruler known for terror. They believed their robes gave them immunity. They believed Vlad III would bow before the church. They were wrong. What awaited them was not negotiation. It was a message so brutal, so calculated, that even hardened kingdoms across Europe would whisper his name in fear. And after this moment, the church would never look at Vlad the Impaler the same way again.
Before we unveil what happened to the spy priests who dared to defy him, take a moment and subscribe to this channel. Here we uncover the most shocking, forbidden, and untold stories from history, not as fairy tales, but as dark, documented realities shaped by power, blood, obsession, and belief. If you were drawn to hidden truths, ruthless rulers, and the moments that changed the world forever, this channel was created for you. Subscribe now and step into the shadows of history with us.
In the mid-15th century, Eastern Europe stood at the edge of collapse. The Ottoman Empire was advancing relentlessly, swallowing kingdoms and bending rulers to its will. Between the Islamic East and the Christian West stood a narrow, blood-soaked land, Wallachia. And ruling over it was a man shaped not only by war, but by captivity. Vlad III had once been a hostage of the Ottoman court. As a boy, he had watched cruelty used as discipline, pain as language, and fear as order. While other princes were taught poetry and diplomacy, Vlad learned something else entirely: control through terror. When he finally reclaimed his throne, he returned not as a victim, but as a weapon. To some, he was a defender of Christendom. To others, a demon in human form. He ruled with an iron will. Thieves were impaled. Traitors vanished. Nobles who questioned him were erased. Vlad believed stability was born not from love, but from fear. And it was this reputation that attracted the attention of powerful religious authorities far beyond Wallachia's borders. The church watched him closely. Some wanted his protection, others wanted to control him. And so they sent men dressed in holiness, but driven by political intention. They arrived not as warriors, they arrived as priests.
They called themselves servants of God. A small group of foreign priests arrived in Târgoviște under the banner of spiritual diplomacy. They brought with them sacred texts, ornate crosses, and official letters sealed by powerful European authorities. On the surface, their mission was simple: to establish religious unity, to ensure Vlad remained loyal to true Christian order. But beneath their robes were hidden agendas. These men were not only priests, they were observers, informants, spies. They questioned Vlad's generals. They documented troop movements. They studied the weaknesses of Wallachia's defenses. Their true intention was to report back to rival powers who feared Vlad's growing independence and unpredictable brutality. At court, Vlad watched them in silence. He did not interrupt their sermons. He did not object to their rituals. He allowed them to walk the halls of the palace freely. But he listened to every whisper, every coded phrase, every nervous glance exchanged between them. And slowly, he began to realize something chilling. These men were not men of God. They were instruments of control, sent by foreign powers to manipulate him or destroy him. And Vlad, who had once been a pawn himself, had no intention of being controlled ever again. So he played along. He welcomed them, fed them, let them believe they were untouchable, all while preparing his response.
Storm clouds gathered above the fortress. The air was heavy, as if the land itself sensed what was coming. On that night, Vlad summoned the priests under the pretense of a private blessing ceremony. They entered a dimly lit hall, candles flickering against stone walls, the scent of incense masking a deeper, darker atmosphere. They began their prayer, believing they were standing before another ruler seeking divine guidance. But Vlad did not kneel. He stood in silent judgment. One by one, he presented the evidence he had gathered. Secret notes, translated codes, witness testimonies from servants and soldiers who had been questioned in secret. The priests denied it at first, then pleaded, then prayed, but Vlad was not listening to heaven. In his eyes, betrayal disguised as holiness was the most dangerous form of treason. He declared that false priests were worse than open enemies because they weaponized faith against the innocent. And in Vlad's world, betrayal carried only one sentence, not merely death, but a message carved into history. What followed that night was never recorded by official church documents, but rumors spread across Europe like wildfire. Even hardened knights grew uneasy. Even kings whispered caution. If this is what Vlad did to men who hid behind God, what would he do to anyone who dared betray him again?
Word traveled faster than armies. Across monasteries, courts, and kingdoms, the story twisted into legend. Some called him a monster. Others, a necessary evil sent by God to defend Christian lands. But all agreed on one thing. Vlad could not be manipulated. Vlad could not be controlled. And no title, not even holy, would shield a traitor. This moment became symbolic, not just of his cruelty, but of his independence from religious authority. He was a ruler who chose his own morality. And while the Ottoman threat still loomed large, Europe began to recognize that Vlad was fighting a different kind of war now. Not only against invaders, but against hypocrisy itself. Within Wallachia, his people whispered his name with fear and undeniable respect. Lawlessness was gone. Corruption vanished. Order was absolute. The land had become a prison to the guilty and a sanctuary to the obedient. Vlad had achieved what many kings failed to do: total control. But legends come at a cost, and soon that cost would come looking for him.
Years later, historians would debate: was Vlad a butcher, a madman, or a desperate guardian of a dying world? Truth, as always, lived somewhere in the shadows. The story of the spy priests became a warning passed through generations about power, deception, and the danger of using faith as a political weapon. Vlad's empire did not last forever, but his legend refused to die. He became a symbol, a myth, a nightmare, an inspiration for fiction and fear alike. And somewhere between truth and legend stands the image of a ruler who chose terror as his language. Because in a world built on lies and betrayal, fear was the only truth people never questioned.
The story of Vlad the Impaler is not just a tale of cruelty. It is a mirror reflecting how far humanity is willing to go in the name of power, faith, and survival. And it forces one final question. Is he remembered as a monster because of what he did, or because of what the world was willing to become?
If this hidden chapter of history shocked you, imagine what other truths have been erased, rewritten, or buried in silence. We uncover stories that textbooks avoid, and we do it with depth, detail, and respect for history. If you want more untold accounts of tyrants, forgotten empires, and the darkest corners of human power, this is the channel for you. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and join us as we continue exposing the real history behind legendary darkness.